Okay, now this is set equal to 0. We can factor out the x. 0 product law now. Set these both equal to 0 to solve them. And we get 0 and positive 7. Okay, so remember what we're trying to do is find the restrictions. What doesn't work? I plug in 0 up here, or 7, 49 minus 49, I get 0 on the bottom. We can't divide by 0. So we're going to say the domain is x cannot equal 0 and 7. All right, and the other scenario we got to worry about, at least at this point, till we get into trig functions and logarithms and things like that, let's have different restrictions on the domain, are even roots of negatives. Okay, we can't take even roots of negatives. So for example, square root is an even root. So if I took the square root of negative 25, the calculator doesn't like that because it's impossible. Okay, unless I use imaginary numbers. We can't do that. Another even root might be like a fourth root. So if I want to do, fourth roots of negative 16, once again, I have an issue with that. Calculator does, right? It's not going to let us do that. So any even root of a negative number, so for example, square root of negative 25, or fourth roots of a negative, these aren't possible. Not possible. Okay, but if it's an odd roots, it is possible. Okay, so when we have like the cube roots, I'll just give you one example of these. Cube root of negative 8, that is okay. I'll demonstrate it for you here. Cube root of a negative doesn't give me no solution this time. Because if you take negative 2 and multiply by itself 3 times, we do get a negative. That is possible. So cube roots of negatives and positives work. All right, so here's what we got to do about this even root scenario. It's going to happen down here for 19. Once you write this in here, it's not really part of 17, so I'll kind of draw a little box to box it in. All right, so when an expression is under an even roots, not odd root, an even roots, set it greater than or equal to 0. Okay. When an expression is under an even root or even radical, set it greater than or equal to 0. So 19 is our first scenario where we see that. I see an expression under a square root. Square root qualifies as an even root. So what I'm going to do is take this expression, I'm going to go off to the side and set it greater than or equal to 0. Because I want to make sure it's positive or 0, because taking the square root of 0 is okay. All right, once we have it set up, we're just going to solve this inequality. We treat inequalities just like equations for the most part with that rule of multiplying or dividing by a negative, which is going to happen in just a moment. So we're trying to get x by itself, move the 6 over, divide by negative 2. And you were taught before, whenever you multiply or divide by a negative, take the inequality direction and turn it around. So I need to say x is less than or equal to 3. And that is the domain. Those are the ones that work. When we set this up for the scenarios that work. Okay? So for example, like if I were to throw in a number less than 3, like 2, what happens? This is just optional. You can just watch this part if you want. So I plug in 2, I get 4. Take it away from 6, I get 2. And I'm taking the square root of a positive. That's good. That's what we want. These numbers to be less than or equal to 3. So this is the domain. If I gave you something that didn't work on the contrary, if you're checking your answer on the quiz Wednesday, maybe you could try 4. Well, 6 minus 2 times 4, that's 8. Now I get a square root of negative 2 underneath there. That's why we don't want 4. We want numbers 3 or below, and it works, okay? Okay, last one. Let's take a look at 20. It's a cube root. We can take odd roots of negatives and positives, so we aren't worried about this here. It's one of those situations where all real numbers are going to work. We only want to worry about things we need to exclude or restrictions. So the domain is all real numbers. Negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay. The rest of the domain problems down here we'll do for warm-up tomorrow. So those at home, you can do that as well. And then I'll show you the feedback on 21 through 24 tomorrow. Okay.